today I am honored to be here with the HHREC podcast. My name is Cantani Jackson. I'm the program coordinator for Downtown TAY, and I'm here with a TAY participant, Maya, who has a dynamic story. She is here to share, coming from another country, immigrating to America, and then her journey in America, and just how that has been such a powerful experience. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce Maya. If you could just tell us a little bit about how you got connected to TAY and how we kind of, if you don't mind.
Well, thank you. Give thanks. Super blessed and honored to be here. My name is Maya for short. I'm Mexican. I'm East Oakland. I got connected to the TAY Wellness Center through our beautiful host KJ, who we met through a friend. Shout out to Damien.
Shout out to Damien.
He's amazing, and I just navigated as navigating through Oakland. You find yourself at Laney College, and I got connected to you, and this is what brought us here today. And I'm constantly participating in the CAB member meetings and in any community events that feel in alignment to me. So give thanks. Thank you for having me, and I'm blessed and honored to be here.
No, for sure. And so, as you said, the connection with Laney and Downtown TAY, that bridge, and you getting connected to Downtown TAY, much due to the fact that we wanted to kind of collaborate with Laney College, and I'm happy that Damien, you guys came over that day. But your story starts. Let's go to the beginning. Where were you born, and if you can talk about a little bit about the journey of coming to the U.S.
Yeah, so the journey to my life is becoming a hood flower, and to become what I am today is being born in Mexico, and how that was that my mom and my parents, my both biological parents, are from a little town called Cruz Grande, Guerrero. If you know, you know, it's in Mexico. But my parents were college sweethearts. They fell in love, but unfortunately it didn't work out. So my mom decided to move her and myself to the U.S. And we started a new life. And unfortunately, she found love again. She got remarried to my father. Like, that's my dog. And in that, I was brought up with a lot of love, a lot of resilience, and I would say a lot of hustle, because both my parents are immigrants, but I never heard them say that they were immigrants. I never heard them say this was hard because of that. So that's how they always showed me. They never told me what to do. So that's how I got brought up, and that's what led me to grow up in Oakland and survive. And I know later on we're going to talk about Oakland and all of that, but I was born in Mexico, and my parents came to the U.S. for the famous American dream. My grandparents were here already because they got brought by another family member, and they were entrepreneurs, like, off the bat. Like, my family is a family of people that make tamales and pupusas. My grandmother, when she first got here, she made tamales and she sold them out of shopping carts, brick by brick. And then she later moved on to, like, the carts that you see in the Fruitvale area where, like, people are just vending and stuff. So that's how I grew. And now today, like, I work in farmers markets. I do a little pop-up, and that's how people get to know me. That's how I get connected to small events like micro meetups that we have coming up, where I just share food. And it's beautiful because to connect the mind, body, and soul, you really got to connect the mind, body, and soul with, like, food, high vibrational energy, food, and knowledge. So all of that is amazing, and I'm glad to have made a 180 change in my life to be here today. So thank
So yeah,
you.
we're definitely gonna talk more about that 180 change. But I'm happy to hear like the influence that your family had, and like with the like you said, the hustler kind of mentality, and like being able to get into the business of yourself, like, and to explore what it looks like to continue to get into the community, and to, like you said, with the Marshall meetups, and the connection with the food is so sacred. So thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about the journey to Oakland, or the experience growing up in Oakland. If you can just talk about how it was for you growing up in Oakland, and if you don't mind sharing, like, what age did you come over to America?
The U.S. I was 2 years old. I had my first birthday here when I was 3. And ever since that, I've always been an Oaklandarian. You feel me? Like, I've always been Oakland. I never known anything besides Oakland. I love Oakland. Shout out to Oakland.
Yeah, shout out to the town.
Shout out to the town, you feel me? And with that, I went to Garfield Elementary. That's here in the Dubs. I'm from the Dubs. And then that's a public school. And then I transferred over to Oakland Charter Academy, a charter school. And then I went to Leadership Public Schools, LPS. We share campus with Castlemont back on 82nd in Deep East Oakland. So my educational journey was very much a conscious and revolutionary one, I would say, because when I went to Garfield, there was very much community, public school community. And as I transitioned to OCA, Oakland Charter Academy, it was very much a different type of community, where I had most of the population of that charter school was Latino and a couple of Black students. But they really had the vision of persevering and just academic excellence. And with that, I got a lot of, that's the first time I experienced like strict, hard, la mano dura, like, the strictness of education and stuff like that. And I've seen like a lot of teachers that weren't like me, but expected things from me. So that was challenging as a charter school student. Because I felt like a prisoner, to be also honest with you. Like, it felt very much the way we used to walk into school and the way we used to get policed in Oakland Charter Academy. I hope it changed, but it did form me in some type of way to how to be a student. Because I remember one time it was like, the way we used to walk, and my friends can back me up on this, like hands behind your back, walk in a straight line. And I was like, hold up. Like, it was very much that. And since it was a small school, you past the principal's office and into the classrooms, that was all it was, And through that experience, like walking into school and being policed every day about the only attire was khaki pants, black pants. No, only khaki pants, only white, only blue t-shirts. Any undershirt had to be white or black. One time I wore a pink undershirt. Somebody seen it. I got detention. White or black socks, white or black anything. And if you slipped up, you got detention. And detention for a 12-year-old is like, what the fuck? Your parents doesn't want to hear about that. So very much in middle school, it was a lot of that. And I can even hear right now the pain in my voice as I remember, because it was traumatic as I go back. But I had to keep persevering. And then I transitioned to Leadership Public Schools, LPS, charter school in conjunction with Castlemont High School. I love Castlemont. I love LPS.
Shout out to Castlemont.
Shout out to
LPS too.
Yeah, it was great. I was actually graduated with a 4.5. I took a lot of AP classes, a lot of college classes. And through that, I learned how to be a nerd, how to embrace my nerdness because I love education.
Can I ask you, did you like always have a passion for school and education?
I feel like once I had the freedom to speak about education, because I had the experience of OCA being very much my like not good. When I went to LPS, it was like no, like I have to make a change because y'all not gonna police me, even though it was still a charter school and we still had to wear uniforms. There was a little bit more freedom that I encouraged, and there was more Black people and other types of people, and I feel usually comfortable to be myself. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'm also curious to know if your family ever like put a heavy emphasis on getting educated.
Definitely. My mom went to college. She's a teacher in Mexico. Both my parents, they met through college because it was college sweethearts. They always said, well, they did, but my dad was always like, you rather work like me, waking up at 12 in the morning and, at the crack of dawn and doing what I do, breaking my back, or you rather like wake up at 7 and work in an office. So he always painted the picture for me.
For sure. And then like having that instilled in you by your parents, do you think that was different from your classmates as far as a mentality towards education, towards being in class?
Yeah, definitely, because at that same time of going to middle school and throughout all of high school, I worked. My parents have a small business passed down from my grandmother, as I mentioned, and it was every weekend. Every weekend we just pop out, have ceremony selling tamales and, giving it to the community. So that's where the hustling instincts came from my parents because they always showed me. So I always had to like manage as a 12-year, like I started when I was 14 really, to really gain the knowledge of working, to like use Monday through Friday as school days and I had to get my work done, and then Saturday, Sunday was work days. So I kind of structured my life around that, even since today. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I definitely feel like that was a unique experience for your classmates. I'm sure, people have similar experiences, but thank you for sharing your experience. And want to get into like, how was it hard living in Oakland being undocumented? Could you speak on that a little bit more?
Yeah. I didn't know I was undocumented until I didn't know I was adopted legally by my dad, who's Salvadorian. He's my dog. He's my father, but he's also Salvadorian because my mom remarried. So with that, I was about 9 years old. I realized that that wasn't my biological father, and that's when I started to question my identity and like, he doesn't look Black. was my question.
So you knew you were Black?
I didn't know. I didn't really know.
I was curious about that too.
I didn't really know because I only knew through school when I tried to play with the Mexican girls, and they were like, "You look Black," and then I tried to play with the Black girls, and they liked my hair because I was a good hair. But with trying to be in the Mexican culture, it was like, but I speak Spanish. Like, ¿qué está pasando? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm part of the culture, but it was always that dynamic of trying to understand who I was. And when I was 12, I remember going to the ICE immigration here on 73rd to get fingerprinted, to get my work permit, essentially. And yeah, that's how I learned. But being undocumented in Oakland wasn't as scary because I didn't really understand the process until I really went into the doors and seen like the big white security guards. And I was like, whoa, what the heck is happening? And then my dad had to like really explain the story. But other than that, I've always seen a lot of services for the community. I've always seen like a lot of people have like just food coming in for single mothers and things like that. And I really want to like give thanks to Oakland because they really work hard on providing those services. But as I grew up in Oakland, also you got the things that aren't too good for you, like hanging out with a different type of crowd. My When my parents realized I was going on that path, doing my research, as they call it, in the streets, my mama told me, she was like, if you get arrested, you're not coming home. You going to Mexico, and I'm never gonna see you again. So you better make sure you walking on the right path. So being told that, I had to look at life differently. Like, I can't be out here goofballing, and I have much more to lose. And I don't know anything about Mexico at the time. So that's what really helped me still fuck excuse my language, but still fuck around, but still be a nerd, because this was during high school. Like, through the ages of 16 to 18, you just want to experience life and try to be free. So that was my mentality and my upbringing during those growth times, that helped me. Yeah.
No, yeah, thank you. We appreciate authenticity and expression. And so I don't want you to feel like you cannot use whatever words you want to,
Shit.
right. But so I do want to get into the research into the streets a little bit more. I think that you talked about how being undocumented added a extra level of like caution, if like with being in the streets and like not
survival too, like
So actually, do you mind just like talking a little bit about that?
like
just
survival.
Like, yeah, and just how like that. Well, really, I want to talk about, before diving into your graduation after high school and your college journey. I want to talk about like, when did you said between 16 and what age?
18, 19.
So this was before you graduated high school,
Yeah.
right? So like, what do you think like kind of like made you flip that switch and like, I'm not just this young woman who excels at academics and takes AP classes. There's a lot more dimension to me, and now you're exploring these other frequencies and tapping into. If you would share, like, how did that journey like began, and like what did you gain from that?
Palo Santo for this. So what really took me to it was an allure to the streets, really, because I'm telling you, like, freshman year of high school, it was like, you're a freshman, you don't know anything. But slowly you get to know people, especially in the Castlemont, East Oakland area. People come from different backgrounds. I come from, my parents, we eat dinner at the table every single day, and we talk about our day. Or we might not talk about our day, but we're in each other's company. And that was very different to experience. That some other kids don't have that. But you have to interact with different people. And unfortunately, people have trauma and they bring it to school, and people bring drugs to school, and people skip classes in school. So being the quote-unquote good girl that I am, the nerd, the person that was at the top of her class, president of the school at one point, and Black Student Union too, I fell in love with somebody very special that unfortunately was very much at the beginning of their chapter in their research. But it was like a hood Romeo and Juliet, that like we would hang out, and he was different and I was different, and slowly we ended up being in our own research together and doing that together, like running the streets together, and also with my other friends. Like, I found like I was in Upward Bound too. Shout out to Upward Bound. Shout out to Upward Bound. Yeah. Shout out to a little group that I had in my Upward Bound class called the Hotheads. And we just called ourselves the Hotheads because we were academic. We were academically excellent, but we also like to, we was a group from Richmond, from El Cerrito. We was from Oakland, everywhere, But curiously enough, I always had friends that were in academia, but also running the streets, which was it's like a yin yang dynamic that's very interesting because
It is.
I had different types of groups of friends that unfortunately, like the person I fell in love with, at the time that, like, back to your question when you said what made you flip the switch, was when I got accepted into UC Davis for sociology the year 2020. Pandemic had hit. Oh my gosh. And this person got incarcerated. So it was like, wow, like a lot of things are happening at once and I don't know what's going on. So him getting incarcerated, my friends doing their own thing, and me going into college kind of flipped the switch into like, I'm an adult now. I gotta figure this out by myself. Even though I have family, I need to do this by myself. And trying to find a way to be my own person while I do it by myself and have support and figure out how to work with my support. Oh my gosh, it's adulting 101. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah.
No, I think that is like evidence of like like you said, it's a yin and yang. It's a real balance. I feel like growing up in Oakland and being academically excellent, but also having street smarts, and then also like knowing how to have the responsibility as your own person, because like you said, you have family and whatnot, but at the end of the day, you had to make the decision for yourself to really change your ways and to do things that is in your best interest. So I want to applaud you for that as well. And then you talked about getting into UC Davis. Can you tell us a little bit more about like your graduation after high school and like how that was with getting accepted into college, and then your decision to go to college, and how was that like?
It was like a dream come true for my parents. It was very much my auntie. Well, my mom has 3 sisters, and my mom is the eldest one. And one of my aunts went to UC Davis, so I felt like I was doing like a family legacy thing of like, she went, I'm gonna go too. But then I realized that it wasn't for me, and that's when I decided it wasn't for me. And I wanted to do academic. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to run the streets. I wanted to, because I'd never been like technically free before. I wasn't in my house. So I wanted to do everything. But thankfully, I found a way to do it on my own terms when I came to Laney College. But there was a gap year that I do want to talk about between 2020 and 2022, because that was also a revolutionary year for you too.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to talk about it? Like, share war stories, like research stories, really, because they make us who we are today.
2020. I would just say the pandemic. It's so interesting how you, in the midst of your acceptance to college and whatnot, you're dealing with this global, thing. And I feel like a lot of people were dealing with a lot of heavy things in the midst of that. And so for myself, like, it was a time where I was isolated in isolation and suffering from one of my friends recently being murdered in 2020. And so it was like pretty hard for me to focus on like my academics or my my well-being in a sense. And so I had to like, and from 2020 to 2022, it was like me being in my darkest days and like really just wanting to get out of that, but not knowing how to. But thankfully, Allah, they led me out of that. So I'm just very thankful. So yeah, but let's talk about your years from 2020 to 2022. Like, how was that? You said that you decided to take that gap year. So
yeah, I'm glad you said like darkness, because without darkness, I can't be light. Without my lightness, I can't be dark. And very much it was dark years. It was like dark, but also light. The year wasn't shit.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I literally did a semester in UC Davis. Came right back home. Before I came right back home, I took a trip, a 16-hour trip. I took a road trip by myself and all my belongings to Idaho. When I realized that I didn't want to be in UC Davis. I realized that I needed to take a trip by myself. My first ever solo trip.
16 hours.
Yeah,
That
I
is
drove
on my
16 hours.
bucket list. Like, I'll never, yeah, that's a
Hey, I'm the
drive.
person. But I literally was chasing waterfalls. It came because I was in my dorm and I was listening to TLC Waterfalls. Don't go chasing waterfalls. And I was like, I'm going to go chase a waterfall. Where are the waterfalls nearby? I picked one in Idaho. I was like, okay, I'm going. I'm already, like, I told everybody in school that I wasn't going to continue my education there.
So this was like in the middle of the semester?
This was like, yeah, at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did try to do the college thing, but it wasn't for me, and it was a pandemic. I feel like maybe if it wasn't the pandemic and everything was normal, then I could have continued there, but Spirit didn't want that for me. It wanted a different experience for me, and honestly, that's what brought me here today, because I wouldn't have gone to Idaho and seen a waterfall. The first waterfall I seen, and then drive right back down another 16 hours to go home with all my stuff. With this trip, I was taking all my stuff, everything from my dorm. I was taking all my belongings to Idaho, and it was kind of metaphorical because I've never been a hoe, but going to Idaho, like, I'm the hoe. So it was kind of like, woo, cool, you know? But yeah, that's a little trip I did, and it really helped me just learn how to be in my solitude and be comfortable in my solitude as a woman, because in Oakland I don't really see nobody like you. I always hear you gotta be a lady, you gotta be a man, but okay, who's showing me how to do that? Like, is there a rubric? Since we're always getting graded on everything, like. And I feel like being in my solitude really helped me become a woman. Helps me even today, like, just to be patient with myself, to love myself, and things like that. Yeah. Okay. I bet it's very beneficial as a man too.
Yeah, I think that solitude, and just real quickly, we listen to the voices of hundreds of thousands of millions even
music too
across the entire collective human consciousness. And so it's important for us to dive into ourselves and to have that spiritual solitude, to learn to listen to our own inner voices again, because it's like we don't hear our inner voice anymore because we are not in solitude so much. We're surrounded by so many people and so many noise. It's hard to listen to our own inner voice. And so I think that inner voice is what allows you to grow into the man or woman you want to be.
Ashe. And that's what takes me back to while I was in the trenches. Like, and honestly, when I even say trenches, I think about Brookfield area. I think East Oakland. I think a regular day going out of LPS to the liquor store with my friends. We buy stuff there, and then we go to McDonald's right there on 73rd, and we smoke, we eat, we chill, and that was the trenches for me, because that was kind of the start to everything else, because then I learned more people, and it was very much during the gap year. It was very much, you smoke all day with your friends. Seeing your face, like, you got any history on that?
Like, I think that I can relate. I mean, I grew up in Oakland myself. I graduated in 2018. We're not that much different in age, and I remember going to Youth Uprising, being at Calcimata Lot, going to 73rd Eastmont, and smoking being like the most popular social thing to do.
It was a thing, yeah.
But it's like, I'm realizing now, like, we are all smoking because we have a lot of emotional trauma. We got a lot of shit we got to, we're dealing with, but we don't know how to deal with it. So smoking is not going to help our problems, but it's going to help us feel better in this moment,
It's like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs a surgery, like
surgery,
heavy surgery, because half of the shit that kids are going through is generational. and it's surgery because we need to dive in deep into the root and take out the cyst or whatever, like we got to be doctors of our own self. But yeah, like I very much during the gap year, that's what I learned. I learned about street smarts. I learned a lot about darkness, I would say, because I didn't know what the heck was going on, but I knew that even though I didn't know what the heck was going on, I still had my responsibilities at home to keep working, to keep hustling, with like tamales and stuff like that, helping my parents with their pop up, getting in charge of that slowly but surely. Like I do inventory, I help with everything that needs to be helped with. And that encouraged me during the darkness as I was stepping out to really reflect and analyze on everything that I had been through, because I had seen people get shot. I have seen people like go to jail, and like my friends were doing crazy things. And I was like, okay, everything's going on. And then what about me? Like, who am I? And then I was like, I'm a seed. What do seeds do? I'm like, well, they bloom. So I'm a bloom too, because I'm a flower. So that's where hood flowers came from. It came from darkness. It came from choosing to use what little scraps I had to bloom and to use them as resources. Like if you have a little bit of water, like this little bit of water can be helpful to help me speak further on in this podcast. Like the little things that you have can help you propel to whoever you want to be. So the darkness really helped. Like shout out to the darkness, because shout out to the darkness because we can't be light. Like in the spiritual community, when I started getting involved, it was very much like love and light, peace and blessings.
A lot of toxic positivity.
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't feel very peace right now. I feel very war.
My anger is spiritual practice. Man, shut up. I'm sorry.
Like okay, I'm trying to be at peace. Shout out to Brother Peace. Much love. We gonna get to that. But it was like, how can I walk in peace when I'm still dealing with war scars? I'm still dealing with war scars to this day. Like it's still a healing journey. But it's like when I started being conscious, I was like, okay, how can these crystals help me? And what I learned was when I first became conscious was I went to Lake Merritt.
Lake Merritt, I don't want to cut you off, but Lake Merritt is such a beautiful, dope space for connection. I met so many people, so many high vibrational people. So let's hear what moment you sacred moment took
story
place
at Lake Merritt. Jesus. I mean, there's a drum circle. There's a drum circle at Lake Merritt. Drum circle. And slowly but surely, first, like, I was like, cool, there's like a farmer's market there or something. Like, what's going on? But it's literally regular small businesses and entrepreneurs and artists come together in that space and just spread love. Honestly, it's all about love. So what I did, being in that war space, I started playing the drum. They invited me to play the drum. And then I was like, I like this. And then the next Saturday, I went back. I was like, I like this. I kept going back. It was like my therapy. And I just started playing drums. And luckily now I have a conga and a djembe. They're my babies. But I played the drums. That's what Lake Merritt gifted to me. Through the trenches, it taught me, I transferred my war into peace through the djembe. Through the drums, through the vibration.
That is such a beautiful, and I think that like being up, because you mentioned how when you first got introduced to the conscious community, at least those who you thought were conscious, they was very much like focused on just this one aspect of love and light and this and that, and I'm wondering, like, does that drum circle like bring like the full spectrum for you, or what else at Lake Merritt like allowed you to engage with the darker frequencies and to heal from that? Because healing is never ending.
Never ending. I say, what helped me? It was honestly like boundaries. Learning how to make boundaries for myself, where it was like some people do partake in, like, they drink alcohol or smoke weed or even like sell food, and I'm just like, I want this. I don't want this. I want that, but I don't want that. And just learning that I have the say on what I put into my body and I have the say on what I want to do and what vibration, because I'm emitting vibration through djembes on what I want to do. If you drum really fast, you receive like, I feel like dancers and music go hand in hand, because it's like when you drum really fast, it's like, especially like if you're I don't know, but whatever. If you're a drummer and you drum really fast, like you might have a girl just swing her hips, like just because it's like that type of vibration. So it's like that helped me cultivate my own vibration, as like if I do something slow, then I'm like, that's how I'm feeling. That's how spirit is telling me to feel. And yeah, I highly recommend drumming and doing things with your hands to help you heal. Yeah.
I say,
Ashe.
thank you for sharing that. I'm pretty sure that can help a lot of viewers listening. Let's dive into the culture from, well,
Oh, yeah, we did talk about this. We talked about this in another conversation. I remember it was kind of what I mentioned. Being Afro-Latina, not looking fully quote-unquote Mexican, not fully quote-unquote Black, just having that identity thing, and how that affects many people that look differently, that are ethnically ambiguous. Like... that did affect me, because there was an appeal to be Mexican. I mean, to be white in the Mexican culture. There's an appeal to be white in the Mexican culture. And it's not only us, it's generational. It's like there was literally a caste system in Mexico that said the white people were at the top, the slaves were at the bottom, and everybody else was not only mestizo, but they were called wolves, they were called derogatory names. But the survival mode of our ancestors was to be white, because if you're white, you're clean, you're saved. And that's the appeal to be white in the Mexican culture to me, in my life. But also, I'm not very like, oh, let's hate the white people. Like, no, it's kind of like everybody has their own trauma. And we gotta give grace even to the toxic positivity people. Like they're surviving, they're surviving. Let's give them grace, because we just do the best that we can with what we have. And we just gotta be hood flowers about it and have that vision to be the light in the darkness, That's how I seen it.
No, thank you. So yeah, I wanted to definitely dive into like the culture of Mexico, or how does Mexican culture in America, do you see like the appeal to be white as being solely in Mexico, or
in both,
or being present in America as well, like with the community?
Very much cross-cultural. I feel like what I experienced here as a young girl growing up, I remember my mom even telling me, get married to a white guy so you clean the race a little bit. And it was like, yo, like, I was like, Mom, what are you talking about? Like, my mom married her. Like, my dad is a Black man. Like, why are you telling me this? I thought you were more conscious than that. But it was like, I had to tell her, and she was like, oh, like, I didn't even realize that's what I was saying, But I bet that was what her mom told her. That was what my grandmother's mother told her, because of colonialism, because of capitalism, because of everything that goes on in the world that's tragic to Indigenous and Black people in all over the world. And actually, now that I've been to Africa, like, I see a lot of, when I went driving through the freeways of Ghana, like, there's a lot of white saviors, like that type of thing. And that was interesting to see, because we all have been impacted some way or another through colonialism. So how do we survive? We're still surviving through the repercussions of all of that, So yeah, how has your experience been? Yeah.
No, so honestly, like I was a little nervous to speak about this because like it's
Speak
very
on it.
sensitive to my heart. You know, like
Yeah.
growing up, as you can tell, I'm very highly melanated. I've always been the darkest person in most of the every room I've been in, and I always, I mean, I look like I've come right out of Africa, and it's so funny because my mom does not look like this. My dad does not look like this. I found out I have a great grandfather who has a rich complexion as me, and long story short, growing up, I went to elementary and surrounded by a lot of Mexicans. Like
Yeah.
it was like maybe 4 or 5 black students in the class, and everyone else was Mexican, and I experienced a lot of prejudice and bullying because of how dark I was, and I never really understood why those kids would make fun of me until I got to middle school, and I found out that to them they made fun of each other for being darker. It's like the more brown you are, it was a bad thing. Like to them, just being a little, having a little bit more shade than their peers was being dark skin. And so for us, dark skin was something completely different. For them, dark skin is just being a little brown. It's like, wow. And so that's when I realized, like, so to look at me, it's like, you're completely too dark. And so that's like kind of what I grew up with. It's like a lot of my Mexican peers like making fun of me. Not all of them, of course.
Yeah.
And then even my experience was dating Mexican women, like, and then finding out the parents don't like me at all, like, and I was like, it's a lot of anti-blackness, and I didn't know where that came from. But like you said, the caste system in Mexico and like the impact of colonization is so heavy.
And growing up in America too, where it's like to have black skin is a crime. Like you have a crime tag. If you wear a product, that will be your price tag, Like, and that's hella hard to see because I feel like that is the main point that has our communities conflict with each other. Because it's like the Mexicans we're undocumented, but this was our land. But we're not going to speak on that though, and black people is like, y'all, we've went through the same struggles already. Like, why are we fussing up against each other for a single argument that one is lighter, one is darker, Because it's just irrational to me. And I always, since the color of my skin is like a mix of everything. I'm literally a mix of like, honestly, European, indigenous, and black. So it's like, as I was growing up too, it was like, how do I identify? Because, unfortunately, I don't know my biological father, but I've always known that I was black because naturally I was always at the dance team. I was always, like doing different shit than my other peers. Like I was always different, but I didn't know what it was until I really researched about, I took notes. My mom was telling me, oh, we're from Acapulco. I was like, Acapulco.
So
Yeah. And then I researched about what is that place? And then I've come to find out it was a slave port. Come to find out after it was abolished, everybody mixed, So I was just like, oh, okay. I guess that's who I am. Like, yeah.
So can I dive into that a little bit more? Like,
yeah.
Growing up, you had to discover you were black yourself. Like, how did your mom never tell you? Did she not want to tell you, or did she just feel like it wasn't a need to tell you? I'm just curious on like the reasoning, or if she ever gave you a reason on why she never told you.
That's interesting because when the first time I went back to Mexico, I tried to open that conversation with her, but I feel like still, like with any parents that aren't together, you don't want to talk about the other person that's not in the picture. But thankfully, like my mother's aunts that are from the same place, they always throw parties, and they invite us. And I was like, that's the only time I saw dark skinned Mexicans when I went to those parties. And that's when they kind of knew my dad because they're all from Cruz Grande in Mexico. And they were like, "Oh, you look like your dad." And I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" Yeah. So, but I feel like she didn't tell me because I always really had a dad. Growing up, I always had a dad. Like when I got sick, when I had school conferences, I always had a father. Thank the Lord, because I feel everything in my life has been aligned to what I need. So to my father, if he ever gets to see this, it's like, I just thank you for the time that you weren't in my life so I could have somebody else to be in my life, because my dad is a great person. Yeah. So yeah, like talking about traveling is like getting documented, because I only got documented in 2022. It was 10 years in the making. And it was like after my little gap year, I literally started getting serious with making money and working hard and going back to school. I came back to Laney to study communication studies. And that's when my mind was like, I was always like, not looking down, but I was focused. I was just like, shh. And then one day my lawyer calls me up and he's like, "Oh, your papers are here." And I was like, "Oh, damn." I had to look up and be like, "Oh, the sky looks nice." You know? But even when he called me and said I had my permanent residency, which means that I live in America, it's like the seal of approval. Like, you're not an alien. You live here. You're not a citizen yet because you can't vote, but you have the permission to stay in America for as long as they give you the expiration date. So yeah, when I got that call, I honestly waited a week to go. I didn't tell anybody. I wanted to keep being in my undocumented mentality where you hustle, you bustle, and you work hard, you are humble. But yeah, like that was the experience, because I didn't even wanted to accept it myself, but I ended up doing it. And when I did, I was ecstatic. I was happy. I told my mom, I told everybody. But as with every great thing, I feel like first I have to experience it in my solitude to see how I feel about it, because there's a lot of different energies always around, and a lot of people are jealous or feel some type of way about it. And I just needed to know how I felt about it. And how I felt about it was well deserved. Because I've lived in Oakland my whole life. I went to school. I know that Abraham Lincoln did that thing, and but yeah.
So speaking of that, like, what was the process like being getting your documentation? Did you have to take tests? Like, how was that?
Yeah, honestly, to get the permanent residency, first you have to have a work authorization. Since I was a child, I didn't work because I was in school. But they ask you for your taxes if you have any, your bank statements, what do you do with your life and stuff like that. So you make a profile of yourself and then you just send it to the people, and if they approve, then you get your papers, and that's amazing. And thankfully, my family after actually my dad. The reason I went to El Salvador this past March was because he left when he was 17. Now he's like 53. I don't know the math, but he's been here since that long. His parents passed away. He's never been back, but it took that long for him to go back to his country and things like that. But it does take some time. So when people get it, they're very grateful. And that's why I feel like a lot of undocumented people work very hard and take things that are like sometimes wages that are less than what you should get paid, because you just really want to have that American dream. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So like you said, once you receive your permanent residence, you were able to travel. That opened that door.
Oh my gosh.
And can you talk about like your trips outside of the United States after gaining documentation?
Yeah. They were my first trips on an airplane because thanks to Upward Bound, they had let me to thanks to LPS and Upward Bound because LPS took me to travel HBCUs. We went to Clark Atlanta, we went to Howard, and I got to see all of that, and I got to be on an airplane. But the trips outside of the country were mesmerizing because the first trip ever, I think I got my papers in January, and my mom already had a trip scheduled for February, and I feel like that was in alignment because she couldn't go. When she came to America, my grandmother said, you can't go without going with me. And that's how I came here. And as she went back for the first time, she couldn't go back with me, you know? So that's how it worked out. And yeah, like it was interesting to see Mexico for the first time and being in like you have to take 2 airplanes to get to where we're from. From like it's about 7-8 hours to go back in airplane. Imagine it by foot. That's crazy. Like and I didn't even know I took that trip when I was 2 years old, you know? um, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think yeah. It was by myself with the coyote and other kids. Yeah. But the first time it was amazing. There was a big party. There was a big party celebration and surprise. We literally got off the airport, traveled to our little town, and then there was a party to celebrate our return and stuff. So that was cool. I got to meet people that I never met before but always heard about. And yeah.
So in following up with that, I would like to dive into your experience in Mexico. You mentioned your name is Maya, and I wanted to dive into what that name means to you and the significance of your name, and if you were able to connect with the meaning behind your name once you got back to Mexico, or was it any time before or after that experience when you were able to connect your name, the significance behind your name?
Yeah. Honestly, I got more connected to Shango when I was out there. But I feel like Yamaya is always in my life. Well, first I do want to mention that my one of my great aunts, she does practice Santeria, but she's seen that I was wearing cowrie shells on me. She's seen I had Palo Santo on me. And then she was like, come here. She was like, she was like, you go by Maya? Do you know, like she was just asking me questions.
Like, so I feel like a lot of people don't even know what Santeria is. You don't mind just sharing, like, who is Maya?
Santeria is the synchronization of the Yoruba deities and Catholic saints, because when enslaved peoples were brought over to the Americas, they brought their customs, but unfortunately it was like death to practice our religion. So we kind of syncretized it and made them happy and not kill us by saying, yes, we'll praise your gods. And that's how Santeria really came to be. And thankfully, like, our ancestors kept it with them. Because honestly, that's how I learned, like, the tambor. The tambor symbolizes, like, unity. And when I first seen it in Lake Merritt, I was like, that I was naturally attracted to it because, like you said, like, you always have your bowl. Like, it's just ancestral knowledge that we continue to have. So when I went to Mexico, my great aunt, she was like, come here. She was like, you have Palo Santo? You know how long I've been trying to get Palo Santo? And then I was like, no. And then she was like, you have a lighter? And I was like, yeah. She's like, do a little cleanse on me. And I was just like, okay. And then I naturally did it. I never done it before. But you just do it around the person. And that's when she was like, you're a blessing. She like gave me a confirmation to continue to do it, to believe what I believed in, which was honestly the religion of love, to practice being in my authentic self. Yeah.
I just was not expecting you to say that. Like every time somebody asks me what my religion, I always say love. So when you said
Love.
that, I was like, what? Okay.
Heavy on the love, because
Yeah.
I feel like for myself, if I dive it too deep into a religion, it's like kind of lose myself a little bit. And it's like, I actually, when I was in high school through the trenches, I did go to church. I went to a church actually that's, oh my God, it's in East Oakland. It's on 9-8. Like, if I was driving, I could tell you right where it is. But it's in deep East Oakland. It's Christian Tabernacle. And I literally went after school, like one time a week, and I learned about God and the Christian faith. But I found that I got more, I felt ashamed of what I was going through instead of embraced and learning how to have coping mechanisms. That's what I learned. But I also learned that, having faith in something helps mental health. So yeah, like whatever faith you choose to believe in, like that's your faith and you choose how to navigate through it. But for me, for people like us, it's love. And the vision that I see through is being a hood flower, because that's having faith that things will get better, that you're going to keep growing. Yeah.
No, yeah. And then I think I appreciate like you naming what Santeria it is and how like our ancestors had to like synchronize it with
what was your experience with Santeria?
Santeria is Yoruba. So I first got introduced to Santeria. I was first introduced to Yoruba and Ifa, and then I got introduced to Santeria through a co-worker. His family practices Santeria, and so they have a spiritual shop right around the corner from the TAY Wellness Hub. Definitely encourage people to check it out. Casa Hosa. I don't want to butcher the name, but they what intrigued me about Ifa and Santeria as a whole is the Orishas.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I say, my religion is love, and I think the love within me allows me to tap into a lot of cultures, tap into a lot of practices, and whatever speaks to me, speaks to me. Yamaya definitely spoke to me. Oshun definitely spoke to me, and that may be because I'm a triple water sign. So like I was like, it was just something about me learning about those Orishas.
It kind of empowers you, right? It's like, do you have like an Orisha that you feel most connected to? Yamaya, you said?
It actually is Yamaya. Like I have a prayer dedicated to Yamaya at my office right now. Yeah. But I do want to talk about like that connection to culture and like our culture and how you got introduced to Repaired Nations. Do you want to talk about what Repaired Nations and how important the work Repaired Nations is doing?
Yeah, I mean, the way I found, like, social media is such a powerful tool when you know how to use it right, because, and also the universe plays a factor in it, because I had already gone to Mexico. Well, actually, when I found Repaired Nations, no. It was like around the time that I first got my papers, and I was like, okay, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? I was scrolling through social media, and they had an itinerary for 2 weeks to go to Ghana to come back to the motherland, essentially. And what the itinerary had was going to cooperatives, going to enslaved sites, and going back to where our ancestors used to navigate. And that really called onto me, because I was just going through this whole transformation. I just got my papers. I just got like the big green card to say you can go back to your motherland. And being someone multicultural, where's my motherland?
Yeah, I'm curious to know, like, as far as like embracing your Blackness, like how was that too, like in connection with Repaired Nations? Because I'm pretty sure your step into Repaired Nations was a part of you embracing who you are, in that Blackness identity. Yeah, so like I'm just curious, like was that a struggle or was?
Honestly, kind of. I did have that little bug in my head that said, "What if I'm not Black enough to go?" And then I met Michael. Magic Medicine Man.
Shout
Shout
out to
out.
Markel.
You know. Shout out to Michael because he led the meetings for us because you do need to get a visa, stamped of approval. Mamma Mia, Greg from Repaired Nations. You can actually find them at repairednations.org if you wish to be in a cooperative that focuses on collective businesses and collective education, just to learning on our roots. That's what brought me to Ghana because in the meetings it was all centered to that. It was like people from all over. People that are regular people, like working tech jobs, that are working nonprofits, that are artists. Shout out to all the artists, Brother Peace, that went on the trip. Everybody that was there was magical. But before we went even on the trip, we had to have these meetings to just like know what we were expecting. Every meeting.
Set that intention.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was like, dude, I'm like, they embraced me in the meetings. Like if I'm going to travel with these people, like I'm going to feel safe. So, the meetings felt safe and the experience felt even safer. Like I was in community. It didn't matter where we came from. We were part of the diaspora. And because we got called back home, back to Africa, that's the reason why we deserve to go back to our trips, because all the sacrifices our ancestors and even us in our lifetime we made for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So it was challenging. It was honestly challenging to explain a little bit to my mom that I was going to Africa. She was like, where are you going again? I was just like, I'm gonna go say hi to my ancestors. And then she was like, respect.
I say,
go.
I'm just so happy that the ancestors like guided you to tap into that, like, because that is such a powerful experience that I am like pretty jealous that you had out. But I'm honored for you to have been able to do that. I hope to do that myself, and I hope for people in the community to everyone from the African diaspora. I hope to be able to
to have that experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And where did you travel to?
We went to Accra. Went to Tamale. This Tamale. That place was Tamale. And then there was a place called Mole. I'm like, bro, this is like, what the hell? We went to Kasi, and I'm telling you.
And these are all cities in Ghana?
These are all cities in Ghana. They're like, they're kind of everywhere. I couldn't tell you exactly where. But Accra, obviously, it's like the main city of Ghana. And we went to Cape Coast. We went to Cape Coast.
Because I do want to know, like, what did this experience teach you as well? And I'm pretty sure you learned a lot there.
When I say we went to Cape Coast, it really brought me a flashback of going to Cape Coast. Tears in my eyes, because being of the diaspora, you always hear about the stories of enslaved ancestors. But we got a chance to be in the place they were enslaved. And that brings like another emotion, because it's like it's literally traveling back in time and also analyzing how society is as a whole. Because you walk into Cape Coast, there's a lot of people selling stuff. First off, you're already going through these emotions. But honestly, the way the castle was designed, there was a church at the top of the thing, and then under the church were enslaved people. So it's like how I feel about church and things like that. And there was like a special room where slaves were sold and just like things. And there was like different aspects into the castle where like they pulled women. The women site was directly connected to like the priest office, you could say, and whatever happened there. There was a men's section too. They were separated, and honestly, it looked like now prisons. It looked like prisons that we have today, like with the little door where they give you the food and stuff. That's how it looked like. But yeah, like they all had tunnels to go to the main gate, the door of no return. It's called the door of no return because nobody was supposed to return to that place. Nobody was supposed to return to Africa. But I did, and you did, through me. And the ancestors returned us because, dude, like we went back. That's literally the door of no return. So we went back, and it was a wonderful experience. Definitely connect with Repaired Nations about future events. They have another trip this year. They're going to Zimbabwe and Ghana. Yeah, so it's amazing, and just staying tapped into the collective power. And also, as we traveled, like we went to go see shea butter farms. I stayed
shea butter farms,
right. They made shea butter right then and there. Like, boy, it was amazing. But also, like how important it is to grow our own things, because I also stayed in a village. I forgot the name, but it was a great village, and the irrigation system does need work, like bathrooms and things like that. To be brutally honest, there's a shed and a hole on the ground. So it's very different. But when I stayed in Kasi, it was like solar powered everything. They had like a lake where they bathed and stuff, and they grew their own fruits, and it was like ancestral knowledge. Like it was amazing. You can also look kasi.org. It's in Ghana. If you want to look up further into it, it was amazing, and it really opened my eyes to like what I'm questioning about life right now. Like knowing all that I know, how can I use my leadership to be a steward of my community and be a steward of collective power? Because as we bought everything, shout out to Kingdom, you the GOAT, because we bought everything. He was like the leader of, okay, who wants this? How many people are going to buy shea butters? How many people need backpacks? We were girls too. Like, how many people need dresses? They could sell me a dress for $15, but if we all buy some, it's $10. You know what I'm saying? So it's like having that mentality of collectiveness is what Repaired Nations gifted to me through the trip, because it's like you're gonna experience greatness not only because you're traveling back to the motherland, but with the people, because the environment is so, like the intention, the environment that they cultivate, beyond words. Like if you get a chance to go, and I hope you do, tap in because it's gonna be amazing.
God is calling my name, and I'm just happy you shared that experience, because a lot of people from Oakland and just from all of these communities in America, specifically from the African diaspora, have this negative view of Africa due to, again, colonization and whatnot. And so like Repaired Nation, to repair that, this
it's in the name.
You know what I'm saying? Like to repair our own self-image and our image of where we come from is so important. So I'm just happy that you were able to take part in that. And then you got to visit El Salvador as well. I want you to talk about that.
I said, it was for my dad. He hasn't been back in like hella years, about 4 decades. That whole experience was amazing and crazy. And like I said, my parents own their business, and I'm the eldest of four. So we decided for the trip, it was like a month. For the first week, my parents and my 2 youngest siblings went. I took care of everything else. I took care of the house, the business, my sister that stayed with me. And that was a growth, maturing moment, because I never done that before. It was always my parents take care of everything. But as my dad took a trip very long ago, where he left everything and went to find a better future, this time he left to go back to his past, to Back to the Future or something like that. So a trip to El Salvador, I went to the Mayan pyramids. Back to my name, Maya, like
the Mayan pyramids. That's so cool.
I love my name because I researched Yemaya, through Santeria. I know Maya from the ancient civilization, but there's also a third Maya that is Indian in the Hindu culture, and it's a story. I'm gonna sweeten it up shortly, but it's like there's a god Brahma that's the creator of the earth, and then when he created all the heavens, the skies, the planets, everything, he was like, I want to create something that's gonna walk on the earth, like something that's gonna like humanity. He wanted to build humans. And then he was like, how do I do this? So he created a goddess called Maya, and she decided to play a game with him that was like, okay, this is a game. You're going to build a human, whoop-de-whoop, the human. And now the game is going to start when you put yourself, the all-knowing, into that human. And the game starts when the human forgets that they have you inside of them. And that's where Maya comes from, being an illusion. And I feel like life is full of illusions, but also like full of, just full of illusions, and also multidimensional in so many ways. So that's how I came to be. And sometimes
Yeah.
like if you ever see me, I put my shades on and stuff, because it's like it's everything an illusion. Like I have to be in my own world.
It really. Thank you. No, I don't want to get too deep because I do want to talk about El Salvador, but like the Mayan pyramids, but like sharing the other part, like that third element to your name, was so powerful. So
mind,
just
body,
thank
and
you.
Soul,
right?
For sure.
Because it's all a dream. You're living in your own. It's so funny because I was just thinking about really quickly about how this journey in my life is about how I always been great. I always been a musician. I always been a warrior. I always been a hero. And it was about me remembering myself. Like I got into this, and I'm like, why did I choose to do this? But I chose to be here for a reason. So just thank you for sharing that, because we all have to realize the illusion.
Did you ever? Sorry to cut you off, but did you ever hear that you chose your life before you got here?
Yeah, that's exactly why I said that. Like I'm like, I wonder why I chose to do this and to not remember my power. And
like what? And I gave it to Maya, the Bhagavad Gita. I'm like, that's just the game that we're playing.
And I love how you said it was a game too, because when people don't realize, like, it's Matrix. Really, you cannot, this is a play. This life is a play, and like we are the architects of that play. Like we get to decide, like nothing is true, everything is permitted, so you can you can be who you want to be.
That takes me back to like the Matrix of American culture, because it's like going back to the trenches and the memories that I hold dear as I was in that. We both had to had to be the person that was drowning and the person that held us up. You feel me? Like that's the heroine in my story. I'm just like, my heroine is like my higher self. It's like she pulled me up. Like the person I am today helped the person Maya last 2 years ago to pull herself up and be the best she could be. You feel me? Like, and I feel like that's like the matrix within the American culture, because during that time it was a lot of drugs. It was a lot of like, even in relationships, like, can we talk about the toxic relationships that form because of trauma bonds? Like, that's very important, because some of that stuff is Keisha, like it's you being addicted to certain substances, whether it be pills, whether it be weed, whether it be nicotine, whether it be food. Like we all have that like we had to get away from. But I see that in American culture through like music, everything that's presented to us and stuff like that. And very much like, I'm very much American as I am Mexican, I feel. Because it's like, I grew up here. Like, I don't know like what it is to grow up in Mexico, but I'm empathetic with that, because I was born there and I did have the struggles of being here and stuff.
So may I ask, like, traveling to Ghana and getting to travel to El Salvador and Mexico, like, do you feel like these trips opened your eyes?
Definitely. Yes. And I also like had this image in my brain of the allegory of the cave. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's a Plato's allegory of the cave, where it's like, once you awaken, you can't go, like, the allegory of the cave is basically like the first row of people see shadows, and that's all they see. The second row of people are playing with the fire, and they're making the shadows, and they know that they're making the shadows because they're playing with the fire. The next row of people, and it goes on and on and on. So once I opened my eyes to see that in Ghana, I could be the steward of my own food. In Mexico, I realized that I could be like a civil steward because I had like citizenship there. I can vote there. In El Salvador, I learned that, real estate, owning land is very important to my family. And how they pass it on through generational wealth is very important. So knowing what I know with my travels so far, like, I definitely can't go back. Like, I can't go back to being like, I don't know, because I know now, So it's like, how can I cultivate my life to embrace all of these things that I know is what I'm trying to deal with today, because I'm so young and I want more resources. But I'm going to work with what I got,
No, for sure.
For
And
sure.
then, like, I think that that experience of traveling definitely maybe changed your perspective of America. And
Yeah.
I was curious to know what, before you were blessed to travel outside of the country, what was your perception of the United States, like, before ever traveling outside of it? Like,
I thought this was the best place on earth. It still is, But I thought I actually
I wanted to say in what way?
in what way? This ain't Oakland ain't Disneyland. But honestly, before I even got the papers, I felt like Oakland was my whole life. It was my whole life.
Yeah.
It was like, this is what I do for a living. Like, I do this, I do that, I do that. I wasn't thinking about I could take a summer vacation and go to Brazil for the summer. Like, what the heck? And I feel like that's what's in a lot of our minds as we grow up in inner city communities, where it's like we go through so much, we don't even allow ourselves to dream big like that. Like, we don't.
So it was like, not to cut you off, but like, it was like, from what I'm hearing, it's like, growing up in the United States, you didn't even think about.
I wasn't thinking about other countries.
Thinking about Oakland. It was just Oakland, really, like, for, like, that's all you knew. And I think that's like my own experience too. It's like, it's hard for me to see outside of this block I'm on right now, because this is all I know. So yeah, I definitely hear that.
Yeah.
And
it takes me back to like restorative justice that you do your part in for the society too, because it's like, we hold a lot of trauma, like how I said before. How can I turn my war into peace? How can I do the metamorphosis? How can I do the work? And part of that is restorative justice. Part of that is like, some people don't like therapy, to be honest. Like, some people, I feel like sometimes in this matrix, there's so many gateways that you really have to choose what's best for you. Because if you choose something that's not for you, bro, like, I chose going back to school. But I chose going back to school to a certain extent, because I don't know if after community college, I want to transfer to another college. Like, within the educational world, there's also a matrix where, like, you can go to another college, get in debt. And then who teaches us financial literacy? Who teaches how to heal from our wars? And yeah, like back to your question where you said, like, did you see anything before being blessed to travel? I didn't, because all my world was like Oakland, and I didn't think outside the box of things like that, like traveling, things that I'm doing now. I didn't think I could ever do it.
So then after your travels with Repair Nations and just with family, how did you think differently about the United States, Oakland, and just the country itself?
I feel like Oakland is parallel to many other hoods, I would dare say, in the world, like Brooklyn, like places in the Midwest, places in Miami, where there's things going on the same as Oakland, but just a different perspective because of the geography. And I see that because I see hoods in El Salvador. I see hoods in Ghana. I see hoods in Mexico. And that's what really propelled me to keep my vision of being a hood flower, because throughout all the hoods that we have in the world, we still bloom. We still find a way to be resourceful and follow our dream. My dad did it by coming to America. That was his flowering bloom. And, my mother did too. And other people do their own thing. You know what I'm saying? But it was like, that was my biggest reflection coming back and knowing that I had the power to be in collectiveness through Repair Nations. I was like, I didn't even know we could do businesses like that. Like, imagine if we all knew, imagine if all the drug dealers did something like that, but instead of selling drugs, they sold Sage, their own digital platforms. I feel like being a girl in inner city communities like Oakland, it's hard, bro. And you get people like Sexy Red that kind of uplift a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. I feel I like it. Because, that's part of the culture.
It is.
But also, I do recognize that it's propelled because that's what people want to see us as. So there's kind of the yin yang of it all. But there's definitely hoods everywhere, and I just want to give light to them because we all bloom in our own ways. And it's important. And it's important to recognize the different artists that are out here, all the people that we listen to. We were just talking about Cash Kid. We were just talking about Sada Baby. We were just talking about other people and their vibration. Mm-hmm. But we can also talk about Londrell. We can also talk about
Lil Russell. Shout out to Lil Russell.
So it's how can we give that back to the young 15, 14-year-olds that are having that, or even sagging pants, the history behind that. That's what I learned in Africa. And I was just like, whoa.
What was the history in Africa that you learned?
Disclaimer alert, this is sensitive, but after the slave masters captured them, our ancestors, they would take their manhood by rape, and to signify that person was already raped, they had to have their pants sagging to say, oh, that one's already, we already took his manhood away. So coming back to that, and also dealing with the relationship of I have a person that I love that's incarcerated too. Mm-hmm. So it's shout out to you, babes. Back to the people that that we hold close to us. It's important to know the history and how that is playing in my own life of I have people that I know that have been incarcerated or have gone through trauma like that. That's important to know. So when we do decide to heal as women, we can uplift our kings, and as kings, we uplift our queens. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to give note that there's a big movement, from the hood to the woods by Brother Peace, through the Hood Flower Vision, through me.
Niggas in Nature.
Yeah,
so many dope organizations.
So many dope organizers, but we have to come in unity in some way so we can really understand our history, because it's so important.
No, I honestly remember OG telling me, you need to be sagging your pants. So that means you're pretty much homosexual. They used to reference to prison. I never knew this connection to slavery.
And prison goes back to slavery.
I never knew the connection to slavery. So thank you for sharing it. I think that this is, like you said, this being in America, we're dealing with a lot of history that informs how us as a community moves now. And I think that understanding that is important. So your travels outside of America gave you that perspective to be though this sagging pants is very much a product of some
colonialist,
some fucked up trauma. Shit, you know what I'm saying? So it's we don't need to be, because I feel that's a part of breaking out that
matrix.
I say. And so I do want to know why, and when it comes to we're talking about as far as being having that change perspective of America now, and like growing up in America, growing up in Oakland, growing up amongst your peers, what, in your opinion, like what is holding so many kids back from succeeding in these hoods? Honestly, like what do you think is the reason why the youth are not stepping into their power, breaking away from the matrix, or in your own words, like just not being able to bloom?
I'm literally during this moment. I'm literally asking myself, what held me back when I was during that time when I was literally along my friends. What did we need? Like, what was holding us back? Was being seen. For me, was being validated, because part of our culture, like sometimes we hurt ourselves. We hold ourselves back, and through holding ourselves back, we hold our peers back. Like, ain't nobody was telling me, hey, you can write a book. Like, you can look at this differently. So we definitely need hella healing and heal from trauma. But if I pinpoint it down, I would say, like, validating my point of view, from a point of education, from a point of family, from a point of, like, just knowing through social media even, like, sometimes you hide behind the keyboard and you don't really say who you are, but you need to validate yourself. And you need part of validating yourself is loving yourself. And, you just got to learn how to do the things. But most of us are in survival mode. So
Talk
it's
about
like,
it, yeah.
Survival mode. Like, what is survival mode to you?
Because I feel like that you just hit it right on the head. Like, because this is my passion. I'm a youth mentor, a coordinator, healer in the community. What we need is to heal, right? Because like you said, it's a combination of like not knowing our identity, or wanting to find that identity, and our identity is mixed with the
things that they give us to believe about ourselves.
I'm about to say the agenda that's being pushed upon us, right? So the circumstances around us, but that forces us into survival mode because of those circumstances. And I think being in survival mode is simply being broke, being not economic, not having the economic empowerment, not having that generational wealth, not being able to meet your basic essential needs. And so how are you going to prioritize your values, your value system, your morale, when you have to provide for yourself or your family? So that's what survival mode is. And it takes away from our morals and values, because we are so focused on providing that meal for
That's why we have to be thugs. That's why we have to scrape and hurt people that are around us. That's why we used to, during the crack epidemic, sell it to people that we knew and stuff, because we needed the money. We were on survival mode. And survival mode to me is waking up every day and smoking. Just trying to cope with life. Honestly. Like, in the simplest day, it would be waking up and smoking, and possibly getting out the house, driving to go smoke with my friends, because we was going through the same shit. Yeah.
Can I just like say one thing about survival mode too, is that when you have people who don't have the resources, you put crabs in a barrel, and then you
speak on it.
You expect them to not be suffering mentally, right? And so then now emotionally and spiritually, and so now we find a lot of youth smoking marijuana, which is medicine. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. It's not, and then they demonize it because of the excessive youth. That too. And it's crazy because I think about myself and how we use weed as this medicine, and how it does help a lot of people do this experiences growing up in Oakland and whatnot, and how it's a slippery slope though, because weed
Yeah.
is a medicine, but it's not. We grow up in these situations where we, like you said, in survival mode, we don't go to therapy, we smoke weed, we do this and that. And so then like
Yeah.
it becomes a point where we're not actually getting to the root. And then by us not getting to the root of why we're smoking, why we're doing these things, and like actually addressing it, it can sometimes lead you to want to dive into smoking more and more and more and more just to get away, just because you feel better. And for me, it was actually the gateway drug to my addiction to ecstasy pills. And so like I, from 2018 to 2021 was very much smoking of a pothead, but then I became a dope fiend, and I didn't realize like that transition was so like.
You didn't even realize it, huh?
Yeah.
Cause my God,
Yeah.
when I used to smoke Black and Milds, I was like, it was daily. It was like boom, 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 more pack, another pack. But it was like when I became conscious and was like, what's the name of this? Black and Mild? What the fuck is going on? You know, like that shit was crazy because it's a survival mode. And even to go back to like how it's medicine, tobacco was also medicine. Tobacco was used on spiritual practices because it does do certain things to your brain. You know, same with psychedelics, same with mushrooms. You know what I'm saying? Same with weed, where it's like it was certain things that our ancestors did to talk to the consciousness, to talk to our higher selves. That's what weed was for. That's why when I became conscious and was like, damn, I had to take a break. I was like, it was boundaries, because I had to tell my friends. I was like, when we used to smoke weed, you get hungry. We went to McDonald's. Luckily, there's a McDonald's close to us. And then I was like, why is there a McDonald's close to us? Why is there a liquor store right close to it? You know, it's like I just formulated. I was just like, just looking at my geography. I didn't even have to think too hard about it when it was like the liquor store was right there and McDonald's was right there. I was hungry. I got an ice cream, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it was very much that. And like going back to the medicine part was like, how I shared with you, where it's like to retake our numbness, you can set intentions into it. Like when you get your leaf and you do what you do and you break down your thing, your weed, you're like you can set a prayer, an affirmation to give intention. Like if you drink water and say, this water will benefit my health, ashe, like that's what it will do. You feel me? Like it's just knowing ourselves, because if we know ourselves, we have power within ourselves. So as you roll up, I'm gonna share a little song with y'all. Like you get your leaf, you break down your flowers. You say, I'm breaking down everything that does not serve me. What you do after you break down. You kind of gotta rap it, right?
Oh yeah.
You gotta roll it. Yeah. So like this is how I'm rolling. I'm rolling.
I started thinking philosophical for a second. I was gonna say you create. Yeah, you create.
Right, but after like you get the flower broken down, you broke down everything that don't serve you, and then you roll it, and then after you roll it, you have to seal it. So what's so different with that than magic? You know, like you're sealing, like when you put a seal on a like you candle seal something, like you're sealing with your saliva. So we are powerful within ourselves. Like and then you say with whatever you rolling up, you sealing this and like you sealing this and as ashe, so it be whatever intention I put, I broke down, whatever I may receive, and little things like that you can change into your routine that can help you drastically, because it did help me drastically when I was like, I be talking to my smoke. I be like, I hope you do me good. I hope you do me justice today. Like, I hope you bless me. Like, and that's because that's what I broke down. And I'd be like, man, I didn't like this, and this about this, and this, talking about just talking to myself, because the best way to know yourself is to talk to yourself.
And let's talk about it, because this is getting into the conversation around like, how can youth escape generational trauma or escape the matrix, escape these conditions that we are faced upon. And I think that a part of it is like learning learning to tap into the magic within ourselves because they take medicine and they turn into poison when you don't know how to use it correctly, when you are not intentional about it. And so it's like we can smoke all day long, but we're not actually healing ourselves because we're only temporarily having that boost. But you can actually use your magic, your power to like not just get high, but to practice wellness. And like, you know, so I do want to hear from your perspective, like what else can like the youth, children do to save generational trauma and to save this matrix, because it's a big battle.
From my perspective, generation comes from partnership. The person you choose to love. Don't call me on this. I ain't the perfect lover.
You're going somewhere with this though. Yeah,
I ain't the perfect lover because I am the villain in some stories, and I am the villain in some stories. I'm gonna take that. But it's definitely who you choose to love. Because part of what I was like I became conscious, and I was like, man, sometimes you as a female you get like, I hope I get a man that, you know, like provides for, like, fairy tale, and then you get city girls where it's like you gonna take his money too, you know. It's like, and I'm just like, okay, how does this work? You know, so it's very much who you choose to love, who you choose to create your family with, your partnership, even your friends. I got friends, you know, like I consider my brothers and my sisters. So it's really like, bro, if my partner ain't solid with me, like, I feel like that's a reflection of myself. You know, it's like, that means I ain't solid with myself because they ain't solid with me. Like, you're a reflection of me. I'm a reflection of you.
I see.
So, you know, partnership to heal generational trauma, it takes two to tango, and it takes two to create a good home. So, luckily, like, I've seen a lot of healing in the generations through my parents, because they both, like, my parents are best friends. They're so annoying sometimes because they really love each other.
I'm happy to hear that.
And they're best friends, and they talk about everything. They're, you know, they're not annoying, but, you know, they love each other very much. So I've seen it in my home. But unfortunately, like, I did have other things, like not knowing my biological father, which led me to, like, going into toxic relationships. But that's why I say partnership. Yeah.
No, honestly, that was one of the best answers. I feel like y'all need to be careful about who you spend your time with, and like who you
fuck.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I was just talking about how it was this person on social media who didn't believe in soul ties, and how, like, listen, the energy.
They didn't believe in what?
Soul ties.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, sex is the same as sacred energy. You have a lot of people who engage in this act, and they don't realize the consequences of not being able to clear your energy, not being able to cleanse yourself after. And definitely, you have multiple partners. It's a lot of toxic energy that you're carrying around. And so if you're not aware of that, then it's like you're going to continue to
pass that around.
Yeah.
Like a disease, spiritual disease.
You know, and so it's like a part of it is like forming healthy relationships. I remember I used to hear this when I was young, and I didn't really understand the depth of what that really meant. Like, who I want to create this life with is so important, because that is the first step to, like, well, one of the many steps to breaking generational trauma.
Yeah. That's why I say partnership, because I feel like I have loved and I have lost. But thankfully, like, God bless the people that I have loved, because they taught me a lesson. They taught me a lesson to love myself. But literally, it's like, I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. I want to have somebody who I can grow old with if I get old, because I'm forever going to be young.
I say that.
Yeah. But it's like
eternal youth.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So it's like, yeah, how can we really heal our youth as youth? Because we have, like, we're only so young, but we've gone through so much. I was literally reflecting on that yesterday. I was like, I'm only 20 and I've lived through this. Like, you know, imagine 20 more years. It's going to be even more wisdom. But the best wisdom I could ever share is to know yourself and continue to know thyself. But I will say this. When you learn to love yourself, don't stop. Like, because there's shit that's... Once you say I'm saved, like, oh, I'm saved, that's when they come the most. That's when they're going to come and say, oh, is you really saved, though? The universe going to be like, oh, let me check on that. Let me check if you learned your lesson. Oh, this person texts you. Oh, but is you really saved? Did you really learn your lesson? It's like those constant reminders where, like, it's just the illusion, Maya, the Matrix, the universe. It's like, you got to learn the lesson.
And I don't want to... I can talk about this all day and night, but that was something that I actually was getting into. Like, when you said partnership, it's like, that is one of the many steps, because I was going to say the first step, but the first step is yourself, right? Yeah. Loving yourself. And like you said, once you choose to love yourself, please don't stop, because loving yourself is a never-ending journey. I tell people all the time, I fall in love with myself deeper and deeper every day, like learning to explore your emotions, learning how to heal from the trauma, because you're going to continue to attract what's broken if you're broken, you know? So you have to repair and heal in order to receive the light that you need in your life, you know? I think
that reminds me of like self-hate too. Mm-hmm. It's important to recognize the self-hate you have within yourself too. Ooh. Because let's not be like, we're not, but toxic positivity does exist. And it's like, okay, you know, we do hate ourselves sometimes though. Like, sometimes it's like the shame, the guilt, the whatever we've been through that sometimes we walk with. But it's like having those tools after every lesson, learn to say, let me shake it off. Like, I just know who I am, and I know that's not me, so I'm going to continue to grow. And having that constant mindset is the hardest thing, at least for me. Like, I know who I am, and I know where I come from, and I bring it to wherever I go. But sometimes when I'm alone, I don't remember that. And I do things that aren't good for me. So it's like, it's having that integrity to keep knowing yourself and be disciplined, even if like all your friends are doing something else, even if your parents don't believe in you, even if whatever's happening, like having that intention and that, like, being married to yourself in a sense, like be married to yourself. So like when you marry somebody else, it's like, oh, they cool with the fam, because you mind, body, soul, spirit, like you got that other person. And if they have the same thing, and then y'all both going through it, and then y'all have babies and stuff, like generational healing right there.
It is. Yeah. Thank you, because we can pass on curses, we can also pass on blessings.
Healing blessings. Yes. I say, like, yes. How do you feel about like generational curses and blessings and like the things that we get passed down, how to deal with that? Yeah, no,
thank you, because self-hate is like one of the biggest enemies that we face. It's ourselves, right? And I think that it's a daily practice. It's a daily remembering who we are and our powers. I feel like everyone has to constantly calibrate. And when I say calibrate, it's like having an instrument. It's like having a guitar or a drum, and like tuning your frequency to be back in tune with your heart and soul, and to step into your power. I think that it's a daily battle. But when it comes to generational curses, my first thought is about how in this land, generational, it's so interesting. You talked about Ghana and like visiting the door, Cape Coast, Cape Coast, and like walking through that the door of no return. Yeah, like that happened generations and generations and generations ago, right? But we're so impacted by that heavily because the slave trade was in it not that many generations ago. Like our great father, mother actually may have been on a plantation. And so it wasn't that long ago. And then after suffering for generations under these conditions, where was the time for therapy? Where was the time for healing? Where was
There's false promises.
Of that? Any of that? We were taken right from slavery into brutal to existence, the Jim Crow era. All of the lynchings took place after slavery, and so we were still dealing with a lot of pain and trauma from our oppressors. And then the worst thing that happened, and I'll just leave it at that when it comes to generational curses, and I inspire people to look into Dr. G. DeJoy, post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And she talked about like how one of the biggest crimes or the biggest impacts of slavery and oppression was adopting the value system of the oppressor. And so when I say adopting the value system of oppressor, they value being white. And now as a result of generations of being abused and this being put into our subconscious, now we constantly and subconsciously believe that white is right. We believe that we are not good enough. We believe all of these things because that is the biggest curse that we have been dealt with. I feel generationally, it's like our mentalities and believing these things that the oppressor put upon us.
Oh my gosh, you got it. Wow. Literally, that's like the story of my life. It's like, even though this happened hella years ago, like I still feel the remnants. And it's through politics, it's through economics, it's through financial literacy, and it's through family traditions too, where it's like sometimes the shit that people say in the community ain't right. Like sometimes when you have hair like this, that don't mean my hair is better. Like it's the same as if it was kinky. Like they're both beautiful, you know? So it's how we learn to walk with this trauma that really matters, because stepping into like this day and age where you have to be professional, where you have to get jobs, you can't walk in as if you was coming out of your mama house. You know what I'm saying? You have to code switch. And that's the thing where it's like sometimes it's more comfortable to work with like people like ourselves, but also staying too much in like communities with ourselves, we don't learn how to work with other people. And that's so important, to be the bridge. And that's what I try to be. Like, that's what I am essentially through my whole culture, through all the identities that I have through me. It's like being that bridge, because Mexicans, Blacks, and whites, and Asians, and all the other cultures have to work together to make humanity greater again. Where it's like, we can't be pinned against each other. Yes, we have to learn to accept our differences, our religions, our education, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. We all bleed red. So if we didn't have politics, if we didn't have religion, if we were just human, like, how could this world be different? Like, let's just think about that and say, you know, and bring that thought into difficult conversations and conferences in the workplace, in the school place. I used to always ask my teacher, I'm like, why does this matter to me? Like, you know, like, how am I going to use it in the future? I actually got detention for that once, because I don't know why she got mad, but I was just asking a question. I thought she put like I didn't shut up or something. But it was like asking those difficult conversations of unity is so important, because we can't just separate ourselves anymore. There's people with talents of all colors, shades, and faces, you know. We all have to collaborate. And
then we can talk about this all day, so I'm gonna move forward. But I do have to say, with the generational curses, the separation was also a curse. Like, us not being able to see our brothers and sisters and to unite, like us having that the crabs in the barrel. You got to understand, like you said, you put the whole crabs in the barrel mentality first and foremost. It's like you don't want the crab to get out. You know, you want to keep them down with you, but who put the crabs in the barrel in the first place? And so that's why I'm like, you know, these generational curses is deep, is heavy, but like the more we acknowledge them and the more we are able to forgive ourselves, because that's what love is too. It's like learning how to, like you said, forgive yourself for you being caught in that matrix, you know, forgive yourself for the oppressor being evil in the first place. Like, it's a lot of things that we have to, or I should say, forgive ourselves for accepting the idea of what the oppressor put upon ourselves, and how we forgiving the fact that we hated ourselves in the first place.
Forgive others too, because it's
That's
like
what I was gonna
sometimes
say.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
your family.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your friends, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna give you grace. Like, I wholeheartedly forgive you. Like, just receive forgiveness and give forgiveness, because we can't hold to that forever. We'll die if we hold that in forever, and that's not right. We don't deserve to live to that. And I also want to add that reflection and analyzing. Like, if you 15 right now and something happened to you when you were 12, like, reflect on that, like, analyze that, and just learn how to carry that. Learn how to carry the trauma. You won't be healed, but it's like having an addiction, kind of. It's like you learn how to live with it. If you're alcoholic, you got to learn how to say no, man. You got to learn, because you know your limits. So it's learning the limits and knowing what your boundaries are that helps the most. And I feel like the test is when people that you know and love you give it to you. Where it's like, for example, me, sometimes I don't want to smoke. And I got to tell my best friend, and be like, hey, like, I don't want to do it. Like, I think I want to stay home today. And then she's like, okay. And, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, if you really love me, you won't, like, tear me down because I didn't want to go out with you. Like, we're always going to be friends. But it's certain things that I'm not willing to do anymore, because I'm changing and I'm growing. And that's hella important as we learn to navigate and succeed, and for the future generations too, because we're stewards of change and health and wellness, mostly, to continue the peace.
No, I say, and I do want to like emphasize and affirm that like forgiving others is important. So that's why I didn't want to just straight up say like forgiving the oppressor and the white man, but that's a part of it too. It's like if you don't forgive the system that we're in, like you'll forever hold that hate in your heart, and you see this every day, and you're not going to be able to have the groundedness you need to endeavor to actually create the change that you want to see. Like,
and that's where they attack us too, because we haven't forgiven them, and they know we haven't forgiven them. We there's always cigarettes, there's always nicotine, there's always weed, there's always unfortunately prostitutes here in East 14th. There's always something that you can use to escape that isn't necessarily good for you. And whether that be like your sneaky link or stuff like that, like on some real shit, like sin calzones, like how I talked to my mom, like, bro, like it's shit that we do that isn't good for us. Is those bad habits, man. And unfortunately, we all have them, but we have to learn how to deal with them and cope with them and talk to our brothers and sisters about them. Because if I hold all my pain and don't say a word, then I'm going to like die and self-sabotage because I didn't talk to you. That I was like, man, I cried last week because of this. But yeah, it's important to talk to our communities, and if we're fortunate enough to have like a teacher that we love, or like a family member or something like that, that's cool. I feel like that for me, that's like the second option, but it's always to talk to myself, because no one is going to understand what I've been through if I don't understand it myself. Like, you get a notebook, get a pen, put it on your notes. Talk to yourself. Talk to your motherfucking self, because it's so important to know. Don't, like, from a person that therapy isn't for me, so I just talk to myself. Do voice records. Do a video. Like, there's so many tools. Like, just use them. Don't necessarily go, if you need to, go to somebody else so they can give you a different perspective. But after you analyze it for yourself, like, honestly, because that's helped me so much, especially being a private person that I am. I'm like, I don't like everybody knowing my shit. Like, I remember one time I shared it with a counselor and they called people on me. And I was just like, man, fuck this shit. Like,
ooh, that trust was instantly destroyed.
Yeah. I'm like, fuck this shit, I don't want to do this.
Yo, talk to yourself, because we talk to ourselves every day, whether we know it or aware of it or not. We're telling ourselves these things. We're always talking to ourselves. And so, like, actually being like, okay, I want to, like, be more intentional about, like, let me actually take time to, like, really write down my thoughts and see what's going on. I think that is, I like to tell people like I'm my own therapist first and foremost. So what you just said was like cool, but it's like first definitely learn how to come to terms and to just get things on paper yourself. And I think that it also is important to have people to also talk to and lean on as support. You know, community is important as well. But first and foremost, you have to tell it yourself. You have to tell yourself first and foremost. So
I say that's hella
yeah.
important because man, that's part of why we did this podcast in the first place, to share stories and share research stories, because so much like I mean, I'm going to school right now, and like we have to do research articles, we got to write essays, but they're never about me. They're always about somebody else. So it's like taking the time to actually talk to yourself and write down your own story. Man, you could change your narrative. Actually, one of my good brothers, Brother Peace, shared with me. I shared with him that I didn't really write much, but he was like, "Nah, like get that pen and paper and start writing some thoughts down because you do got some bars." I'm like, "I do got some bars, but I don't really write anything because I'm just like I just say it to myself. But after I say it, it just leaves. I don't remember." So it's important to remember because then we rewrite our vision. We rewrite who we are. Yeah.
That's the power of the pen, right? And I think that like we always talk to ourselves, but I think that we don't talk to ourselves like with intention and with love. We kind of like download all of the other feed, the feed around us, and like so those thoughts and those words are not in our best interest all the time. And so when you write, you get to like you said, change the narrative. That was the most beautiful way of saying it. So I encourage everyone watching this to definitely get a journal, to start to write, even if it's like just what are you grateful for, like just appreciating like the gratitude, and like you don't have to focus on the negative when you write. You can focus on what's good too. Like it's really your power, your pen. Like you can really change the narrative and to really address what's like really going on, and to also appreciate what's going on too. Like it's yin and yang to it, right? So I definitely encourage people to write. You say you're attending college right now. I do want to talk about, as we conclude, like what your future looks like and how currently how the educational journey going for you, and what do you plan to do with your career?
Well, yeah. For my career, I'm still deciding, to be honest with you, because there's so many ways that I can spin my story. Like we said, like there's so many ways I can spin the story to have so many different outcomes. I just got to trust the process a little bit because I'm not very sure. But I am a communication studies major. Social human services is also under my belt. And I'm also looking forward to studying cybersecurity to add another like skill set to my palette. Because in this world, there's so much AI going on that sometimes, man, we might not even, AI is taking over and all that. So I just want to have a little feet in there and stuff. But for my career, I just hope that I do something that feels natural to me, that I feel like I don't have to really stress about. And even though things are hard, like I just want something that feels natural to me, because one day I just really want to have my own place and have my own farm where I grow my own food and live with my happy family and maybe homeschool my kids and stuff like that, knowing all that I know. But yeah, I just want to get my family together financially. And yeah, we might even move out the country or do something crazy. I don't know, but it's really up to the universe for my career, because I just want to do something natural, and I believe it'll come to me. It'll come to me.
I say. And then I think that I want to just touch upon like your journey from UC Davis to where you're currently at, because I think that a lot of people have this idea about community college, and coming from like a prestigious college like UC Davis and then going to community college, I'm pretty sure people will see that as a downgrade or something, some way.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so I just want you to speak about like how has that experience been for you, and what is your perspective of like going from UC Davis to a community college?
Definitely. I thought it was a setback myself. I was like, damn, like I done took an L, but I had to turn it into a lesson because it was like I just had to, with everything that I explained that I've been through and stuff like that. It's definitely depends on what kind of person you are, because if you like, if it depends what community, it's in the name, community college. You're gonna find community. UC Davis didn't say community UC Davis. Like it didn't say that. So I was like, how do you navigate this predominantly white institution? Like, I didn't want to be that Latina, Afro-Latina that did that. I wanted to be on my own terms because like I explained, it was like I went because it was my parents' dream. Like they believed in me so much that I even did it, but then I had to revert back to like, what do I want? Because I refuse to lose myself in the matrix of something that I don't want because society says I have to go to a prestigious university. Like, no, even though I do have the means to do it. I graduated with a 4.5. Like, I took the SAT, I took the ACT, I know my shit, but that doesn't mean that because I go to Laney College or Berkeley City College, my 2 home campuses, that I'm less than. It means that I just chose the path that was right for me. And I encourage all the youngsters to do the same for them, because it might be being a medical assistant. It might be being an entrepreneur, So it's like, it's definitely not a downgrade, but it's a authentic path that I chose to do. And thanks to that, I'm here. Like, if I was in SAC right now, I would have never met you. Like, my life would have been so different and so much more, what's that thing? Code switched, because there is a lot of different people that you got to kind of code switch to speak differently. I had to switch when I was over there. I had to switch a little bit and be like, oh, I can't be saying shit, fuck, and all these other things. Like, yes, I'm from Oakland, but Oakland it's good. Like I'm not gonna speak like that. I refuse, because I seen people that have been in my life that code switched, and that's their life. I don't want that to be my life. I want my life to be my life, and that's very much taking my power back, because I learned to love myself, and that's the biggest gift that I could give all the people listening. Like, just know yourself and have power. Have the balls to say no, because then you take your power back.
No, I definitely want to tell people, like, I agree with you so wholeheartedly about, like, I could have literally attended MIT if I wanted to. I'm not just saying that to say that, but like similar to you, like I was very academically like on top of my shit, right? Yeah. And then like high school, I realized like just the matrix, I think that it started to like really have an effect on me. When I say the matrix, I just mean the system, the society, this idea that you have to go to college, these higher education to be successful. Definitely if you're intellect and like, okay, you need to go to college. And then my spirit like rebuked that for some whatever reason. I'm like, I do not want to go to this place and lose myself, like you said, and have to code switch and this and that. Instead, I chose to follow my authentic path, but it took me personally,
it took losing yourself to find yourself.
It was so crazy because like right after high school, it's like me not wanting to go to college. That was the time where I was on a very dark, destructive, me not knowing who I was. But then when I found myself, when I found that light, it's like now I can go up to community college. I'm at Laney now. I'm at Merritt College now, because I'm able to see things for what they are and know who I am and how I want to move throughout this life. So
because I'm a hood flower.
I say.
Because I learned how to take the light from my darkness and switch my narrative around. We both learned how to do it. And, you're the Prince of Hearts, I'm the hood flower, and we changed our lives to a 180 degree to be our authentic selves.
For sure.
And congrats to us.
Congrats to us. And if we can do it from where we came from, trust me, you can do it too. Do you have like any last words you want to share before we, wrap up the podcast?
Well, I just want to say thank you to my mama.
Shout out to
Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here today. And I also want to give a shout out to you. Thank you so much for hosting and being in this podcast. I appreciate you so much. Shout out to Phil that's helping us record and produce everything here today.
for sure.
Shout out to the hood flowers that are in every part of the world that are in the darkness, but I hope you see the light, and I hope that in some way, in some capacity, we get to reach out to each other and change the world, because that's what it's really about. And yeah, give thanks. You can find me in IG. I'm hood.flowers. That's my business page. And I have many others. Like my personal is Diosa Divina. You can find me there under Maya X Ione, Yemaya Flowers, or Maya Flowers. And yeah, the reason why I have so many, because I'm so multi-dimensional. They mean so much to me, because I'm not only one person. I'm like very much differently in everywhere I go. But I stay true to myself everywhere I go. But yeah, God, thank you, God, for the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And just want to give honor to the multidimensional divine being in front of me, like you said, embracing all of who you are, because you are a superstar. And I'm just happy that your story was able to be shared with the community, because I know somebody's going to hear this and it's going to change their life. So thank you so much.
Thank you.